the millionaire, the beggar, and the black man in the age of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Ethan Cross sat alone in his massive glass office, a fortress of steel and light, perched high above a city, screaming in contrast. Neon towers stabbed the foggy night sky, billion-dollar dreams burning bright, glittering like stars you could never reach. Below, streets writhed with shadows, the forgotten, the hungry, the desperate. Cold wind whispered tales through cracked sidewalks where people fought for scraps, while the skyline showcased excess. Ethan's fingers tapped the polished desk, the sound echoing loud in the silence. No cheers, no applause, just the hollow beat of a life, built on power but missing a pulse. His chest tightened. That gnawing emptiness clawed inside him like acid. The luxury, his empire felt like a cage gilded with lies. Then the door creaked. Ethan looked up fast. Standing there, framed by the dull hallway light, was a man. Not one of his usual suits or sycophants. A scruffy figure, wrapped in tattered coats, eyes burning with a fierce, strange light. Black skin, rough beard, haunted stare. He didn't belong in this world of glass and gold. "I know things," the man said, voice low but steady. "Secrets that'll tear down the towers you all hide behind." Ethan froze. Curiosity struck like a jolt through his numb veins. This was no ordinary vagrant rambling the streets. There was weight to the man's words, a dangerous weight. The city's chill seeped under the office door, but Ethan's mind blazed hotter than ever. "Meet me at the Marlowe," Ethan whispered, nodding toward the private club where deals were whispered and destinies forged. "Tonight, we talk there." Behind the curtain, unseen strings began to pull. Marcus Grant, titan and rival, ruthless as wildfire, caught wind of the meeting. His empire was built on silence and shadows, and this was a threat that smelled like war. His jaw clenched tight, memories of old fights flared up, bitter wounds no money could heal. Suddenly, Ethan found himself staring into the homeless man's face once more, in the dim light of the Marlowe. The man's eyes flickered with recognition, painful, raw. A name escaped Ethan's lips before his brain caught up. "Micah?" The words trembled out like a confession. Micah, his business partner, vanished years ago in a haze of betrayal and rumors as thick as smoke. Could this ragged stranger really be him? The question hit Ethan like a punch. The past clawed its way back. Bitter words, broken trusts, family ghosts rising from cold graves. Marcus's shadow loomed closer, the rivalry tightening like a noose around both men. But deeper troubles lurked. Micah's secret mission had roots buried deep in Ethan's desperate search for meaning. A reckoning none of them expected. Eyes locked, Ethan's mind raced. What did Micah want? Redemption? Revenge? Or something darker? Outside, the city never slept, its heartbeat thundering around their fate. An unseen enemy waited in the wings, ready to shatter everything. Would Ethan and Marcus bury their hatred to face this threat, or would their rage drag them both down? Ethan glanced once more at Micah. The exhaustion and hope tangled in that worn face. The air thickened, secrets about to explode, truths that could tear apart lives. And a city that depended on silence. What darkness was gathering in the shadows? What choices had to be made when everything came crashing down? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Ethan's heart pounded as he stared into Micah's face. Memories flashed, laughter over late-night deals, whispers of dreams shared. But those dreams shattered under betrayal, crumbled like dry leaves in autumn. Confusion swirled like storm clouds, and he searched Micah's eyes for answers. What did Ethan? Micah's voice quivered, but a spark of emotion ignited the dim club. It's worse than you think. I'm not just back. He hesitated, the weight of his words pressing down on them both. I've been watching. I know what's coming. Ethan leaned in, his breath catching. What do you mean? What's coming? Micah took a deep breath, as if gathering strength from the ground. The city's built on lies, and you're at the center of it. The world around them faded. Music and laughter blurred into oblivion. Just them, standing on the edge of catastrophe. Da da da. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from the back of the club, sending the clinking glasses and murmurs of patrons into chaos. People screamed, ducking under tables. Ethan's body tensed. He spun around, spotting a figure in black sprinting toward them, a gun shining under the glaring lights. Down, he shouted, pushing Micah to the ground, adrenaline surging. But a moment later, bang, the gun went off. Ethan's heart stopped. He felt the rush of wind as a bullet whooshed past him, striking the wall behind them. Panic erupted as customers scrambled for cover, shoving and crying. Amidst the chaos, Ethan caught a glimpse of the shooter, a familiar face. It was Marcus, anger igniting his features as he aimed again. Marcus! Ethan yelled, voice breaking through the din. But Marcus just snarled, his eyes wild with rage. I won't let you destroy everything, he screamed, unleashing another shot that tore through the crowd. Ethan's pulse raced. Everything he knew was spiraling. Micah clutched his arm, urgency in his grip. We have to go, now. They ducked behind a table, Ethan's pulse drumming loudly in his ears. What's happening? Why is he here? Micah's gaze intensified, deep running fear, mixed with something darker. Because he knows the truth, and it's worse than betrayal. Before Ethan could respond, an explosion rocked the building. A deafening sound full of shattering glass and screams. People scattered, the power flickering. Get out, Micah shouted, pulling Ethan through the confused mass of terrified faces. They stumbled into the back alley, darkness swallowing them whole, the fresh night air clawing at Ethan's lungs. But then it hit him. Micah wasn't just back for redemption. His voice trembled as he whispered, Ethan, I'm not who you think I am. Ethan's heart dropped. What do you mean? As I was trying to warn you, there's a reason I disappeared. I was working for the enemy. It was always about you. Shock punched Ethan in the gut. The world narrowed, fear mixing with disbelief. The city hummed with life, yet all he could hear was a deafening silence inside his mind. "Everything you know, it's a setup," Micah continued, desperation creeping in. "They're going to use you like a pawn." "Who?" The word slipped from his lips in disbelief. Suddenly, a spotlight flicked on, illuminating the alley. Cops, all dressed in riot gear, flooded in, encircling them. "Ethan Cross," one officer shouted. "You're under arrest. Surrender now." Voices faded. Ethan's mind reeled. Micah was a double agent? The realization shattered everything he knew. The lines blurred. Friend, foe, truth and lies tangled beyond recognition. As the cacophony rose, the dark reality settled over him like a thick fog. What were the true stakes? Where did loyalty lie? What choices had been made for him, and at what cost? Ethan's breath quickened. The walls closed in. What awaited him beyond surrender? What dark revelations had been set in motion? Ethan's heart raced. The weight of Micah's presence crackling in the warm bar air. Micah? The name felt foreign. A ghost stepping back into the light after years in the dark. But just as the tension peaked, the front doors to the Marlowe exploded open. The sound shattered the murmur of hushed conversations. A group of men stormed in, their faces masked, eyes wild with purpose. Panic sliced through the room, people darting to the sides like startled birds. "Get down!" a voice roared. The masked men brandished weapons, fingers twitching on triggers as if ready to unleash chaos. The buzzing atmosphere transformed into one of dread, a quiet horror consuming the space. Ethan instinctively shielded Micah, but the fear he saw in his old friend's eyes cut deeper than any blade. "What's going on?" Ethan's voice barely escaped his throat, and the weight of impending doom settled heavily in his chest. Micah hesitated, fear and recognition battling on his face. "This isn't just some robbery. They're coming for you, Ethan. All of you." He shook his head, disbelief chasing through him. "They know everything!" Before Ethan could respond, a loud crack echoed, drowning out the world. A shot rang out, hitting the illuminated display behind the bar. Glass shattering in a spray of crystal rain. A scream pierced the air. Then silence. People cowered, scrambling away from the danger, but Ethan stood frozen. The surreal blend of wealth and fear slammed into him, painting a bleak reality. Everything he'd built teetered on the edge. Faces twisted in confusion and horror as the masked intruders prowled across the room. "Ethan Cross, come forward," one demanded, voice amplified by authority and menace. It wasn't just a demand. It was a proclamation and a dare. Ethan exchanged hurried glances with Micah, his heart thumping louder than any shot. Where had Micah been all these years? What did he know? Lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that danced like specters of his past. Everything weighed upon Ethan like a suffocating blanket. Then came the unexpected. Micah stepped forward, eyes blazing with a determination Ethan had never seen. "You're wrong! It's not him you want!" The room stiffened at his boldness. The attackers froze. "What did you say?" The leader's suspicion dripped like venom. Sweat trickled down Ethan's back, heart hammering in his ears. Micah kept his gaze steady, unwavering. "You're after me. All along it was me." He turned slowly, as if accepting a death sentence. "Take me. I've buried my sins long enough. What? Ethan's pulse quickened. Confusion clashed with betrayal. Micah, what are you talking about? The words clawed their way out, panic rising in him. The masked men shifted, the tension electric. That's right. We know who you are, Micah. Infiltrator, double agent. The leader's voice dripped with contempt. Your game is up. Devastation struck Ethan like a bolt. Micah had betrayed him? All this time spent chasing shadows, running in circles. No, it can't be. But the truth lay bare between them, a raw wound that would not heal. Micah stepped back slightly, pain washing over him. I did what I had to survive. Words tumbled from his lips, heavy with regret. You were never meant to find out. Shock traveled through the room as the masked men tightened their grip, calculating their move. Ethan's world shattered in an instant. Just as he reached for Micah, the shot came again, a deafening blast that ricocheted through the chaos. A scream echoed. This time, it was Micah's voice colliding with the air. Ethan felt every heartbeat stretch, everything he thought was real dissolving in an instant. The bar spun in slow motion, eyes glued to the scene before him. His friend crumpling to the floor, blood blooming like a dark rose, as silence engulfed the Marlowe. What was true? What was a lie? As shadows closed in, everything was about to change forever. Ethan watched in horror as Micah crumpled, blood spreading across the floor like spilled ink. Time froze. All he could hear was the frantic thump of his own pulse, echoing in his ears, louder than the chaos surrounding him. People screamed, some frozen in shock, others frantically trying to escape the nightmare unfolding in the Marlowe. Micah! Ethan's voice grabbed at the silence, a fragile cry stretching across the void. He rushed forward, pushing through the crowd, desperate. The masked men had turned toward Micah, their guns ready, eyes narrowed with intent. No! Micah gasped, his hand clutching his wound. Ethan, listen! But the sound of those pleading words drowned in the panic. Suddenly, the front doors burst open again. A woman stormed in. She wasn't masked. She was a whirlwind of fury. Long blonde hair flowing, eyes blazing like fire. Get away from him, she shouted, her voice piercing through the confusion. She charged past the guards, unwavering. A leader of the masked men sneered. Another one to silence, it seems. But to Ethan's shock, the woman responded with a steely glare. You think you control everything? You have no idea what you're playing with. Ethan stared, throat tightening. He knew that voice. Claire? It slipped from his lips, almost a prayer. She was an old name, buried beneath layers of time and buried love. Yes, Ethan! Her eyes darted to him, fierce and urgent. Trust me! You need to listen to me now! Before Ethan could grasp it all, Claire lunged at the group, taking them by surprise. A flurry of movement. She tackled one of the masked men, sending him crashing to the ground. Run! She yelled. Get out of here! Ethan didn't know whether to stay or go. But there was Micah, gasping, every labored breath slicing into his heart. Ethan, please, Micah croaked, his voice raw. Don't trust her. What? Confusion twisted like a knife in his gut. She's one of them, Micah struggled to explain, pain sharpening his features. I had to keep you safe. I never betrayed you. In that split second, everything shattered. The friendship, the trust, the history, all boiled down to chaos. Ethan's eyes darted between them, searching for truth in a storm of lies. "Micah," he started, but Claire shot back. "You don't understand. This isn't just about you two." A deafening crash erupted as more masked men poured in, blocking every exit. The standoff was electric. Micah struggled to get up, his face pale, desperation in his eyes. "Ethan," he gasped again, reaching out. "It's a setup! I never meant to hurt you. Claire is the reason I had to go underground." Panic surged, tightening around Ethan's chest like a vice. Shadows closed in around them, the air thick with betrayal and fear. What was true? Before he could sink deeper into the abyss of uncertainty, Claire pulled a device from her pocket, pressing it into Ethan's trembling hand. "This will explain everything. You need to see what's coming." "Get back!" the leader shouted, shoving at Claire as he regained his footing. "No!" Ethan yelled, caught between loyalties. Micah's pain, Claire's fire. His mind spun. Suddenly, the device in his hand chimed, and a holographic screen flickered to life, illuminating their faces in eerie light. Ethan's breath caught. Images flashed. Promises of destruction. Names, friends and enemies, all tangled together in a web darker than he ever imagined. The truth gripped him like a vice. The world he understood shattered, and the realization slammed into him like a wave. Louder than the chaos, more urgent than the gunfire. What lay ahead? Could he trust Micah? Claire? Was everything a lie? The crowd swirled in chaos around him, screams and shouts blending, shadows pooling in the corners of his mind. "Find the key, Ethan!" Claire shouted, determination blazing. "Before it's too late!" The ground beneath him felt unsteady, time slipping away like sand through fingers. What if everything was connected? What if they were all players in a game far bigger than him? Ethan stood at the crossroads, the weight of the world heavy on his shoulders. Which path would he take? What would his choice cost him? The questions loomed. A heavy fog rolling in, dark and unpredictable, waiting for an answer. Ethan's pulse quickened as he stared into Micah's worn face. The Marlowe's low lighting cast shifting shadows across the table, and the tension crackled between them, each man a ghost of their former selves, dragged by unseen chains. Time slid by, but the silence felt deafening. "Ethan," Micah said, his voice trembling as if he were holding back an avalanche of emotions. "I came back for a reason. It's bigger than us. There are things you don't know." He leaned closer, eyes darting around the private booth, then whispered, "They're watching. Always." Ethan's breath hitched. Sweat formed at the back of his neck. He thought about Marcus, lurking just outside the club, his instincts strong and dangerous. "Who's watching, Micah? What do you mean?" But Micah shook his head, a shadow of defeat brushing across his face. "Not here. Not now." Just then, a sharp noise sliced through the air, a crash from the back. Glass shattered. A thunderous echo reverberated through the space, and the muted murmur of patrons morphed into anxious whispers. Ethan's instincts kicked in, his body tense with adrenaline. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice low but firm as he stood. He slipped through the small crowd, toward the source of chaos. Heart racing, he felt the cold weight of anger rising up his spine. As he pushed through a throng of onlookers, silence fell, replaced by a dreadful stillness. The room felt heavy, as if the air couldn't decide whether to hold its breath or scream. He saw it. A figure lay motionless on the floor, limbs splayed at unnatural angles. Blood pooled around them, a crimson stain against the dark marble. Ethan's heart plummeted. The suit outlined a familiar build, an unmistakable silhouette. "Marcus!" Ethan shouted, dread filling his lungs. But as he rushed closer, it hit him, something cold and paralyzing. This wasn't Marcus. It was Micah, his brother in arms, the man who had vanished, who had returned full of secrets, now lay still and silent. The vulnerability shattered something within Ethan. This was no accident. It felt like a message. Panic surged as the murmurs rose into a clamor. Nearby tables erupted with shock. Someone shouted about calling the police, but all Ethan could hear was the deafening roar of his heart in his ears. Everything tilted, and the world narrowed down to that single moment. The connection he felt with Micah. "What happened?" he screamed, tears blurring his vision. Then, like a foul wind sweeping through the room, an icy laugh erupted. Marcus emerged from the shadows, eyes bright with a strange mixture of triumph and relief. "You never understood, did you, Ethan? You were always too preoccupied with your little empire." Anger flared in Ethan, but confusion pulled at his thoughts. "What did you do?" "Eventualities, Ethan. Micah had information, and the price was much too high." "But you're wrapped up in your pity party." He took a step closer, the ferocity in his gaze chilling. "And that's where the real power lies." Ethan's vision blurred under the sting of tears. Micah's life was snuffed out, but the revelation sank far deeper. Why would Marcus orchestrate such a brutal end? Was there more to Micah? More than either of them had imagined? The crowd loomed, eyes wide with horror, but the real enemy was much closer. Ethan staggered back, mind racing, realization dawning that everything they built was about to collapse. What else did Micah know? Had he turned against Ethan? Had it all been a trap? Outside, the city pulsed on, unaware and uncaring as the clock ticked down. The stakes soared higher, buried secrets floated closer to the surface. The moment hung, too tense, too charged, waiting for the unraveling that would change everything. Would Ethan pull the threads and risk exposing his world? Or would he remain shackled to the choices that darkened the horizon? Ethan stood there, fists clenched, heart racing. Micah's face was a mirror of lost years, and the weight of their past hung thick in the air. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, the faint sound of shattering glass shattered the tension. A scream pierced the low hum of the Marlowe, and instinct kicked in. Ethan turned, eyes wide. A figure burst through the club's entrance. She stumbled, eyes darting, panic radiating from her like heat. "Help! They're coming for me!" she gasped. The room froze. Conversations halted, all eyes on the newcomer. Strangers shared glances, questions, fear, confusion. Marcus's loyal crew just as quick to gauge the situation, moving toward the bar, hands inching toward their concealed weapons, trained on the intruder. What the hell is happening? Marcus snarled, rising from his seat. Micah stepped forward instinctively, his misfit courage igniting as he reached out. "Wait, just breathe," he pleaded. But his voice barely registered amidst the chaos. Ethan's heart thundered. Memories flared, long nights of betrayal and shadows creeping through their past business deals. Yet this was different. The essence of fear cut through the room. The woman hunched over, gasping. I can't let them find me. He's going to eliminate anyone who gets in his way." Ethan's mind raced. Who? Who is coming? But before she could answer, the air thickened, the door flung open again, and in walked a figure cloaked in darkness. His tailored suit contrasted sharply against the chaos surrounding him, an embodiment of menace. It was Victor Clark, Marcus's right-hand man. Known for his ruthless dealings and chilling smile, he locked eyes with Ethan. "Didn't expect you to be up in this mess, Cross," he sneered, surveying the crowd, calculating, dissecting. A knot tightened in Ethan's stomach. "What do you want, Victor?" he shot back, apprehension coursing through him. Victor's lips curled. "Just business, Ethan. You know how it goes in our world. It gets messy when people start talking." Suddenly, the woman shouted, "No, you can't let him!" But her protest was drowned out as Victor lunged forward, grabbing her by the throat. Ethan's blood ran cold. Time slowed. In that instant, everything shattered around him. The past rushed back. The deals, the lies, the silent wars. Marcus's eyes burned with fury, glancing between Ethan and Victor like a match poised to ignite. "Stop!" Micah yelled, his voice breaking the hold of fear. "She holds the key to everything. If you kill her now, you'll bury us all." Chaos erupted. Shouts filled the air as men reached for weapons. The clink of glasses fell silent, replaced by the muffled sounds of violence creeping in. Ethan's breath hitched. His world spun on a knife's edge. But Victor's grip tightened on the woman, and with a flick of his wrist, he drew a knife from his belt. The blade gleamed ominously in the club's dim light. Now everyone knows what's at stake. Ethan's heart raced. Was Micah still a friend, or had he played all along? And as he looked into Micah's eyes, a shudder ran through him. The weight of betrayal loomed larger. Outside, thunder rolled, matching the turmoil inside. The foundation of everything Ethan believed began to crack beneath him. How far would he go to protect himself? To save the secrets that had haunted them all? The moment hung heavy, like the calm before a storm. What truths would be ripped apart? Could courage win against the darkness closing in? All eyes were locked, breaths held, and as the air hummed with unspoken threats, the world shifted. Nothing would ever be the same again. Ethan's heart raced as he locked eyes with Micah. The air was thick, every moment stretched out, holding its breath. The club buzzed around them, laughter mingling with the clinking of glasses, but it all fell away. The past tugged at Ethan's chest, a wild surge of regret and longing ready to spill over. "Where have you been?" Ethan whispered, voice raw. It felt like a question carved into stone, heavy and aching. Micah's lips pressed into a thin line. "I didn't ask for this." The words hung between them, jagged and broken. Before Ethan could respond, a sudden crash echoed inside the Marlowe, shaking the foundations of their conversation. A window shattered, raining down glass like ice shards. Panic erupted. People screamed, hurriedly looking for cover. Ethan's instincts kicked in. "Stay close," he shouted, trying to shield Micah with his body as chaos unfurled around them. But Micah stepped back, eyes wide, filled with a depth of fear that made Ethan's stomach twist. "It's not safe. We need to go." And then, amidst the confusion, a voice rang out, low but piercing, cutting through the panic. "Ethan Cross." It reverberated through the club like thunder. Marcus appeared, his figure looming in the doorway, flanked by towering bodyguards. He looked calm, almost too calm, as if the chaos entertained him rather than frightened him. "You have a lot to answer for," he said, eyes locked on Ethan. Recognition struck Ethan like fire. Marcus had known Micah had returned. A betrayal ignited in his chest. "You set this up," he shouted. "Not the way you think," Marcus replied, smirk curling like smoke around his lips. "The plans were already in motion. Micah's been digging, and someone out there wants blood." The ground felt unstable beneath Ethan's feet. All the hurt, the rivalry, it melted away, heated under this new danger. "What do you mean?" He was too focused on the shifting sands of loyalty. "Micah has a connection to something bigger," Marcus continued, voice sharp as glass. "A secret far worse than betrayal, and it traces back to you." Ethan's head spun. The pieces didn't fit. Micah was his friend, the ragged soul who had fallen into darkness, not a herald of doom. But as he looked at Micah, a flicker of something flickered in the man's eyes. A shadow masking something primal, something vengeful. "Tell him, Micah," Ethan urged, desperation creeping into his words. "Tell him he's wrong." Micah's gaze turned icy, dismantling their past. "You don't know the whole story, Ethan. You never did." Stunned silence swept over the room. Everyone held their breath, awaiting his next words. Each moment dragged painfully. Then a deafening explosion rocked the club, sending bodies flying. Dust shook the air. Silence crashed in like a wave, drowning all sounds. Confusion morphed into a sharp edge of fear, and Ethan's entire world flickered then dimmed. When the dust settled, he tried to move, tried to find Micah, but the scene before him morphed into a nightmare. The grand chandelier dangled precariously overhead. Bodies lay scattered. Panic surged anew. Where was Micah? Was he still standing? What had been unleashed? Something deep within Ethan churned. A realization hitting harder than the shockwave. Trust had shattered. The bonds of friendship splintering into razor-thin remains. As sirens wailed in the distance, the truth loomed over him like a dark cloud. What had Micah become? Was this darkness gathering just the beginning? What hidden truths lay in the shadows, ready to strike? Ethan's heart hammered in his chest as he staggered toward Micah's still body. The club was a surreal nightmare, shattered glass, glinting like jagged stars against the chaos. The sounds of screaming blurred into a haunting echo. Time felt stretched. Everything moved in slow motion. "Micah, no!" Ethan cried, stumbling closer. The air was thick with dust and smoke. the smell of fear palpable. Panic ignited in his gut. From somewhere deep within the throng of panicked bodies, a voice rose, clear and unwavering. "What did you say, Micah? What secret?" It was Claire. She moved through the crowd like fire, pushing past terrified patrons. Ethan turned, desperately seeking her gaze. "Get out of here! This isn't safe!" But Claire pressed on, determination etched across her face. "I need to know the truth." Suddenly, another explosion rattled the structure, shaking the ground beneath them. The chandelier swayed ominously. Then, in an instant, the lights cut out. Everything was plunged into darkness. Silhouettes twisted against the faint outline of chaos. Amid the darkness, Ethan strained to listen. Breath quickening. Whispers filled the air, ghostly and shifting. "Is it done?" A voice emerged, a low, gravelly tone carrying dread. Then, a crash! Light flickered back on, blinding in contrast. The scene erupted before him, revealing two shadowy figures, cloaked and masked. But one face, betraying familiarity, stood out. "Victor?" Ethan whispered, recognition slicing through the haze. Victor's eyes glinted dangerously. "You're too slow, Cross. Always have been." The club erupted in chaos. Patrons scrambled, screams rising anew. Ethan's mind reeled. Memories of deals gone wrong, the betrayal of trust, everything feeling like a wave crashing over him. "Ethan, we have to get out!" Micah rasped, his voice strained. But Ethan barely heard him, caught in the spell of Victor's words, the anger and fear crisscrossing. "What are you waiting for?" Victor grinned, stepping closer. "Don't you want to know why we're really here?" And then, time fractured again. A flash of light piercing through the chaos as Victor thrust something into the air. A small device, glowing ominously bright. "You're more important than you know!" Ethan's throat tightened around the fear coiling within him. "What are you talking about?" With a flick of a switch, Victor activated the device, and the floor beneath them erupted. The ground shook violently, sending shards of marble flying. A section of the ceiling collapsed in a cloud of debris, and everything erupted into chaos again as people scrambled for safety. But amid the pandemonium, a terrible realization sank into Ethan's bones. The truth dawned like a storm. How many betrayals led to this moment? How many hidden agendas twisted in the shadows? "Micah, what is it?" Ethan shouted, desperation clawing at him. Micah, pale and trembling, met Ethan's gaze. "I can explain, but—" And just then, there was a scream, sounds from a corner of the club. A sudden rush of movement. Through the smoke and confusion, a silhouette rushed past them, heart pounding fast. "Claire!" Ethan yelled, his voice echoing around him. She spun, eyes wide, filled with both terror and something else. She raised a gun. "Stay back. Wait!" It slid out before he could stop it. Panic ignited in his chest. "You don't know what's going on." "I know enough!" She shot back, finger twitching dangerously against the trigger. "And you're not who you think you are." Everything spun. Confusion tangled with betrayal. The ground shifted beneath him again, this time a level of revelation. The last piece of a puzzle he'd yet to see. Then she fired. The shot rang out. startling everyone into horror-stricken silence. The bullet struck Micah. He gasped, eyes wide with shock. "No!" Ethan screamed, lunging toward him. "Micah!" Micah collapsed to the ground like a marionette with severed strings. Everything froze. Breath, time, life. Why? The question barely escaped Ethan's lips. The weight of betrayal crashing down around him. Claire, wide-eyed and trembling, fell back into shadows, confusion flickering in her gaze. I didn't know it would lead to this." And then another realization struck, deep and cold. What if Claire had been part of this all along? Ethan felt like the ground had fallen away, plunging into an abyss of disbelief. Secrets, lies, betrayal spun faster than any whirlwind. "Micah, please!" His voice broke, eyes locked on the blood pooling around him. But Micah's gaze held a flicker of something he didn't expect. Fear mingled with understanding, as if he knew the truth all along. What else was hidden within the shadows? What else would unravel? As darkness crept ever closer, Ethan realized everything he believed was about to be shattered for good. Ethan knelt beside Micah, dread swallowing him whole. Blood pooled like dark water around his friend. Panic surged through him, a chaotic tide. "Micah, please!" The tremor in his voice echoed in the chaos. Micah's eyes flickered, pain etched deep, but there was something more. Fear, a dark understanding. "Ethan, you have to listen." His voice was a whisper fighting to stay alive. There's something I haven't told you." The world around them spun chaotically, bodies scrambling, shouting blending into a horrified murmur. But all Ethan could focus on was Micah. "What are you talking about?" Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. "About Claire. She's not just a stranger, she's involved." Micah gasped, urgency coloring his tone. "And it's worse than you think." Ethan's stomach twisted. "Claire? The woman he once trusted?" Just then, a flash of movement caught his eye. Victor's figure shifted, looming closer. The menacing aura about him felt like ice against Ethan's skin. "Enough of this!" Victor barked, eyes glinting with malice. "You're in no position to negotiate." But as sweat dripped down Ethan's brow, something clicked. A rush of memories, of affection intertwined with betrayal. "What do you know, Victor? Tell me!" Then, two loud bangs echoed through the chaos, firing past Ethan and striking the earth near Micah. People screamed, but in that terrifying second, something seemingly impossible happened. Micah's body jolted, limbs stiffening. His eyes, once filled with pain, now flashed with a stained clarity. "Ethan!" he rasped, voice reverberating, as if summoned from another time. Then he spoke words sharp enough to slice through the chaos. "I'm not who you think I am." Ethan's heart dropped, confusion washing over him like a cold wave. "What the hell are you saying?" Micah's gaze sharpened, bearing an intensity that transformed him. "I'm not just your business partner. I'm part of something bigger, something you never wanted to see." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Eyes darted between them, disbelief etched on every face. The tension thickened, becoming a living thing wrapping around Ethan's throat. And then Claire stepped forward, eyes wide, her gun trembling in her grip. "Micah, don't!" "Stay out of this." Micah's voice rose, But he sounded different, stronger. Ethan must know. Before Ethan could fully process, Micah erupted from the ground. A surge of power radiating from him, pushing against Victor's crew. The air crackled as an unseen force began to bend reality. Micah's body pulsed like a flickering light straining against darkness. Time froze. Visions of the past surged through Ethan's mind. The laughter, the shared dreams, the betrayal. Everything in their history twisted. The weight of truth crashed over him. "Micah?" he whispered, fear and desperation creeping in. "What are you doing?" "I was never lost. I was never gone," Micah exclaimed, fire igniting in his voice. "I was sent to protect you. All of this, was a game. Sent by who?" Ethan's words steeled against uncertainty. "What do you mean?" And then, through the clouds of chaos, a figure emerged, shrouded in darkness, yet somehow known. "I did this." A voice pierced through the madness, cold and calculated. It was Micah's father, long thought dead. The past collided with the present in an unspeakable way. Ethan stumbled back. "You? But you were dead." "No," Micah's father interrupted, a smirk crawling across his lips. "I merely watched, waited for the right moment. And this was it." The crowd gasped. Everything they understood faltered. Layer upon layer of deception cascaded down, shrouding them in confusion. "What does this mean?" Claire demanded, her grip on the gun wavering, the only anchor in the storm. "Everything you've ever known is a lie," Micah stated, holding his ground. "And Ethan, you're the key." In that moment, as the walls of trust crumbled, Ethan stood at a precipice, his world tilting, shadowed by secrets that whispered of cascading darkness. Would he step forward or descend into the depths of their twisted reality? Ethan stood at the edge of chaos, confusion swirling around him like smoke. The truth of Micah's words crashed over him, heavy and suffocating. "You're part of this? Some bigger game?" Micah nodded, a mixture of pain and resolve in his gaze. "We're all tangled in it, Ethan." "I thought I could protect you. I thought I could stop it." Victor snickered, stepping forward, dark energy radiating from him as he loomed. "Isn't it too late for that? This is bigger than any of us. You're just pawns on a board." Ethan's heart raced. Micah lay bleeding on the ground, time ticking away, the stakes rising. The club filled with trapped breath and anxious whispers. He could feel it, a growing storm waiting to unleash its fury. "No!" Claire shouted, raising her gun again. "Enough of this madness!" Tension electrified the room. Claire was shaking, her gun aimed but wavering. "We need to stop this now." "Stop, and let you all break free." Victor laughed, every chuckle dripping with malevolence. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Ethan's mind raced. Everything felt like a nightmare spiraling out of control. His trust in Micah, Claire, they were hanging on a thread. "There must be a way," he shouted, desperation burning in his chest. In that moment, something in Micah shifted. "Ha ha ha ha! Ethan, listen to me." His voice strained, but it carried a weight that demanded attention. "They want you. You can't fall into their trap. You have to fight. Ethan reached for Micah, heart pounding. We can do this together. But Victor stepped forward, eyes dark with malice. Together? You're far too naive. Resetting the board is what we do. A loud crash reverberated through the club, and the room trembled. Glass shattered. People screamed, shockwaves rippling through the crowd. Get down, Claire shouted, and the room erupted into frantic movement. Ethan barely had time to react as fire erupted around them. Panic igniting the club like a match dropped into gasoline. We need to get out of here, he yelled, adrenaline surging. Feeling the flames of betrayal and urgency, he grabbed Micah's arm. We're not leaving you. With a burst of strength, Micah pulled himself up, staggering. You don't understand. This is bigger than us, but it can end here. Victor smirked, drawing closer. End? Oh no, this is just the beginning. Ethan's breath stilled. He had to act. Micah, what do we do? The whispers of the crowd faded into shadows as Micah stood before him, ready to fight back. Trust me, Ethan. We'll take them down together. Ethan nodded, determination igniting a fire inside him. The walls shook and windows shattered, but he stood firm beside Micah. Let's end this nightmare. But as they made their way through the chaos, fresh dread soaked into the atmosphere. Would they reach the truth? Would they find a way out of this hell together? As they faced Victor and his crew, the uncertainty loomed larger than life. Everything they built and believed was at risk. Blood, friendship, futures riding on a precipice. In the eye of the storm, with trust dangling by a thread, Ethan knew this was the moment they either rose or fell together. The tension charged the air, a pulse of fate pressing down on them. And as they prepared to confront their demons, Ethan felt a flicker of hope deep within, ready to ignite. And just like that, a choice lay before them. But one thing was clear, the story wasn't over yet. Now, friends, you have to subscribe now. Hit that red button so you don't miss all the exclusive content dropping soon. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even a second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this ending. True fans know.